Hello and welcome to Long COVID Foundation podcast. This is the channel where we share educational information on long COVID to help you get answers relevant to your symptoms. Please watch this video from start to finish because it will help you to learn more. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe button because it will help me get answers relevant to your symptoms. And one more thing. Due to numbers of long haulers globally reach over 180 million to date, we want this channel to be more visible to everybody. So by simply liking and sharing our videos, you will help many out there. Our channel will be easier to find among the general YouTube search. So 3 simple things you can do to support our charity. Subscribe, like, and share. Thank you to all of you. So let me introduce today's topic and our invited speaker. So we have noticed that many long haulers get regular reinfections. Now, going 2 years back, many scientists spoke about herd immunity and that collectively we can fight the virus and stop the pandemic. We had many new variants since, ran the vaccination program, but ended up in 180 million long haulers, new variants, and many sudden illnesses which started to flare up with regular reinfections. It is a very large topic and lots have been discussed previously on our channel. But immune system wasn't not yet covered. So we have invited Karina Harking today, who is a natural medicine public health contributor on Geert van den Bosch's Voice for Science and Solidarity, and author of the book COVID-19, What Public Health Won't Tell You. Karina holds 3 Bachelor of Health Science degrees in complementary and alternative medicine and a master's in public health. Karina was awarded by her college for being the first triple degree graduate in Australia. She chairs, moderates, and presents at international conferences on topics including phytochemicals to address major global health challenges. She specializes in treating antimicrobial resistant diseases beyond the medical approach. So, Karina, it is my pleasure to welcome you on our channel.
Hello, Valentina. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So, Karina, as my introduction has mentioned, today's focus is on immune system. And I know you've done lots of research on solutions, how to train immunity. So it would be really interesting for our community to learn a little bit more about that. If you could share your screen and share presentation for us, it would be great.
Certainly. Well, it's very exciting to be able to share this with people. It's a new concept. Well, today I'd like to talk about how herbal medicines reprogram innate immunity, which is what I've been researching and written about on the Voice for Science and Solidarity. What I'd like to discuss first, actually, is Geert van den Bosch's main warnings to humanity. I'd like to summarize them. And these are very important because, you know, I'm not an immunologist, I'm not a vaccinologist, and this is why I listen to Geert van den Bosch. And his main message is to stop the rollout of a mass vaccination program during a pandemic, using a leaky vaccine, which is how he describes them sometimes, meaning a non-neutralizing vaccine. So obviously people are still getting infected once they've had it. And Geert's other important message, and why I contribute on the Voice for Science and Solidarity, is to promote natural immunity and to discuss how herbal medicine boosts both innate and acquired immunity. So our immune system consists of innate, which is early onset, and acquired. So acquired takes a couple of weeks to kick in. So innate immunity is the key here, because only innate immunity can abrogate SARS-CoV-2 infection. And in that case, both are capable of eliminating the virus and inducing sterilizing immunity to contribute to herd immunity if you have a fully functioning immune system, if you have a working adaptive immunity, and if you have a strong innate immune system. So a lot of people are immune challenged now. And this is why we're not seeing herd immunity. We're not getting to herd immunity, but things that I'll discuss today regarding the herbal medicine can certainly help us as humanity contribute to herd immunity and move the pandemic stage into endemicity, it's called, where it's just local and regional. And this is what we want. And this is very important for at-risk populations to protect our, elderly and our vulnerable. And Gert says simply that only innate immunity can abrogate SARS-CoV-2 infection, meaning it can stop it in its tracks. And so there's two problems that Gert warns about on the website. And this is that the vaccine antibodies directed towards a spike protein, that the innate antibodies are outcompeted by them. So our innate antibodies from the innate immune system, first onset, are antibodies that we're born with. And because they have a lower affinity for the virus, there's affinity and avidity in immunology, but basically the vaccinal antibodies get there first and take over them. Essentially, they wipe out innate immunity. This is the problem. And this is your first line of defense, and this is what stops infection. Gert then says that in his call to stop the mass vaccination program in children in particular, because the innate immune system is very important for our children, that this increases the risk of autoimmune disease and other viral diseases in children. And then the second problem that people will have heard a lot about is that vaccinating during a pandemic, specifically using a non-sterilizing vaccine, will drive variants. So this is natural selection, and increases the risk of ADE, so antibody-dependent enhancement, which is also called VADE, which is vaccine-associated disease enhancement. So I'll explain it, but basically is the vaccines are not sterilizing. They don't neutralize the virus. They don't kill the virus. Gert van den Bosch, he reads the publications and he understands them. He says there is no single piece of evidence showing that infection or indeed any of the COVID-19 vaccines, so natural infection or the COVID-19 vaccines induces antigen-specific cytolytic T memory cells. So these are also called cytotoxic T cells or CD8+ T cells. Now, every term in immunology has about three ways to describe it, but you'll hear of these being described. So, and he's been looking for this evidence, obviously. So what happens then is when the vaccinated, and indeed people who've had the vaccine maybe haven't had a good innate immune response and developed memory against it, the vaccinated have a high viral load because they have vaccinal antibodies already. Well, they have a high viral load because they've come in contact with the virus, plus they have high vaccinal antibodies. There's something else that actually recalls them, but it's this combination of a high viral load and high vaccinal antibodies. This drives natural selection and then viral mutation. So this is what we're seeing in the vaccinated, that they're becoming reservoirs for this disease and they're breeding new variants. So au contraire, in the unvaccinated, yes, we get exposed to the virus and we have a high viral load, but as the adaptive immune response takes a few weeks to kick in, we have low antibodies and we don't have that push. So further than that too, it's like what I'll be really talking about here is how we can stop infection in its tracks next time we come in contact with it. So I'll try. So antibody-dependent enhancement is, the definition is raising antibodies that don't protect but make the viral infection worse. So here we have the virus is the hexagon and the Y-shaped antibody. If you can see that actually assisting the virus entry into the cells. So this is, and this happens because the antibodies are non-neutralizing. So this happens whether it's, obviously these things are being investigated now, but certainly the chance of antibody-dependent enhancement, a few professors and immunologists actually speaking about this. And so antibody-dependent enhancement changes innate immune response and inhibits antiviral response. It enhances viral infection, makes the disease worse. So that's the risk. We're driving mutations, we're wiping out our innate immune system, and we're risking antibody-dependent enhancement. So this is why trained immunity is so important. So trained immunity is a new concept. So like I've mentioned that there's innate and adaptive immunity. Normally memory is associated with the adaptive immune response that takes a couple of weeks to kick in. So what scientists have found out recently is that that memory is also present in the innate immune cells, that they can be trained to remember, so that when we're re-exposed to the virus, we can have an enhanced response. But there is a chance actually that you can have, down here on my diagram there, it does say that there's 2 responses, which I'll discuss. So the innate immune cells, really the monocytes and macrophages, the natural killer cells, and natural antibodies are innate antibodies. These are very important. They're produced by the B cells. So these cells we're talking about are actually can be trained to remember, so that we have a better response. And this is important because coronaviruses are very clever. So you ask why people get infected. They've evolved multiple means to evade immune response. And all antiviral mechanisms are prone to immune escape, especially when operating during a pandemic, unless they are non-selective. And this is what Gert says, and this is why he's stressing the importance of a healthy functioning immune system. So this is why the natural antibodies and the natural killer cells are so vitally important during this pandemic. So, and like a distinguishment must be made between immune modulating mechanisms that mitigate infection, so things that slow it down. And also there's disease and immune mechanisms that neutralize or kill the virus, but not only kill the virus affected cells as well. And once again, only innate immunity can abrogate infection, can nip it in the bud, can prevent infection, can stop it. So we're not talking about lowering the symptoms of COVID-19 disease or lessening, the severity of COVID-19. We're actually talking about not getting it in the first place and being immune to it. So I just have a diagram there with, these are the cells of their innate immune system and adaptive immunity, which is B and T cells, and they remember. So these neutrophils now, the monocytes, the natural killer cells, can also remember. And they're actually there before, they're made while we're in the womb still, and they're non-specific, which means that they kill everything bad and nothing good. So our immune system is a wonderful thing if we can just leave it alone. So when it comes back to all things difficult like immunology, how do we train our innate immune cells to remember pathogens? So we have simply to lead a healthy lifestyle. So it does come down to diet and lifestyle. This is epigenetics. This is everything around us, avoiding pollutants, exercising, stress management, weight management. So what I discussed then is herbal medicines and phytochemicals that actually do this as well. But it's very important. So for us to have a healthy lifestyle, it's, this can be achieved by optimizing health and educating innate immune cells. This is called functional reprogramming, to improve their adaptation to the pathogen. So to keep them up to speed with how the pathogen changes. And herbal medicines, what I'll go on to discuss then is herbal medicines have been shown to epigenetically and also metabolically reprogram innate immunity. So I'll touch on these things. I'll try. And then we'll talk about herbs as well. So epigenetics again, the mechanics, is how we interact, how our genome interacts with the environment. So I'll be talking about innate antibodies, again, the antibodies that we were born with, and only innate immunity abrogates SARS-CoV-2, very important for at-risk populations. So mainly IgM, these are the ones we're speaking about. So immunoglobulin M, these are produced by the B cells of the immune system. So these B cells can be trained. And very important, natural antibodies are non-selective, also described as non-specific. So they're going to protect us from all pathogens that are bad. And they're very important natural antibodies too, because they bridge innate and adaptive immunity. So science always looks at things separately like this, but they're actually realizing that it all works together. Again, so trained immunity is the epigenetic and metabolic reprogramming of innate immune cells to remember a previous exposure to mount a far more effective response. So you have epigenetic reprogramming. Again, this is how we react with the environment. And then metabolic reprogramming is basically carbohydrates, proteins, and fat metabolism. So obviously herbs can be sources of these things as well. And then you have a term called metabolo-epigenomics, which is basically there is no metabolism without epigenetics, and there's no epigenetics without metabolism. Yeah, when we have an infection, we need like to make ATP, and so everything is involved. And in Chinese medicine, this would be, you know, yin and yang. Everything works together. So this is a term used to describe how they both work together to support trained immunity. And Gert van den Bosch clearly says that the epigenetic training processes are compromised in vaccinees, so in people who've had the vaccine. So the things I'll go on to discuss will actually will provide a solution for people in how to stimulate and educate and train their immune system. So the effector cells of the innate immunity. So these are the immune cells that are actually going to be trained to remember. So I've mentioned some of them. I don't need dendritic cells is another one, macrophages, natural killer cells, and the natural antibodies. So these immune cells, I'm going to talk about how the immune system speaks to each other, yeah, how it communicates. But they recognize surface glycans. So you've got your interferons or your chemokines or your natural antibodies or your natural killer cells, and then they'll recognize the pathogens, the glycans patterns on the surface. And again, natural killer cells, very important to stop infection in its tracks. So like all pathogens or microorganisms, SARS-CoV-2 spike protein is also recognized in a glycan-dependent manner by multiple innate immune receptors on these immune cells. So again, the immune system doesn't have eyes and ears to communicate like we do. So how it communicates is with signs and signals and patterns and handshakes. This is how it works. So it's so delicate, like it's just, I mean, the interplay is incredible. And I guess with modern living too, we're not educating and stimulating and training our immune systems like we have in the past. So there's a lot of immune challenges. We're faced with a lot of immune challenges. So again, the innate immune system relies on these, they're called pattern recognition receptors. So you have TLR, these are toll-like receptors. TLR4 is one I'm going to mention, it's very important. So the pattern recognition receptors then recognize the pathogen-associated molecular pattern on the microorganism, and then that stimulates the response. So then what happens is this triggers innate immune responses, and then you get your interferon production and your pro-inflammatory cytokines, and everything is okay in a fine amount. It's just when these things are unregulated, unchecked, unbound, then that they can lead to cell destruction and the things that we see. So I will be talking about PRRs and PAMPs, or pattern recognition receptors and PAMPs. You also have damage associated molecular patterns. So this is from damaged cells. So the immune system has to also get rid of those, also has to get rid of the virus affected cells as well. And TLR4 is one I'll mention because the herbal medicine has been shown to actually affect this receptor. So many exist. Again, the patterns are glycans, and natural antibodies are directed towards these glycans. And TLRs in particular are responsible for RNA virus detection. Of course, SARS-CoV-2 is an RNA virus, and for activating interferon. So TLR4 is very important for the innate immune system. And I'll discuss that a little bit more. So immune dysfunction, so when things don't go right, certain people, of course, contract SARS. They display a well-coordinated immune response and they recover easily. And then others display a dysfunctional immune response, leading to complications including acute respiratory distress syndrome, sepsis, multiple organ failure, cytokine storm, long COVID. So some people, so here on the left, you have the normal production of cytokines, and then on the right, you have a hyperinflammatory state. So certainly the immune system is not regulating itself. And this is a herbal medicine is very good because they modulate immune response to inhibit inflammation and to prevent the cytokine storm. So there's over 2 years into this pandemic, there's a lot of research now. So yeah, that cytokine storm is just due to a massive cytokine chemokine release. And then you get all these pro-inflammatory interleukins. Interleukin 6 is very important, tumor necrosis factor alpha and interferon. But from my perspective, you know, nothing is good or bad. It's only, it's about checks and balances here. So we'll talk more about immune dysfunction later. So in relation to how herbal medicines epigenetically and metabolically reprogram innate immunity, there's a delicate interplay between exists in epigenetic reprogramming with histone modification, DNA methylation, and pro-inflammatory microRNAs. So this is where the research has shown that herbal medicines actually are able to interact with histone modifying enzymes, and they modulate DNA methylation and they regulate mRNA, microRNA expression as well. So this is how herbal medicines epigenetically reprogram innate immunity to train innate immune cells to remember. And they also have a role in metabolic reprogramming as well. But again, this is a new field in immunology and much newer in herbal medicine. So it's exciting, but so much more is yet to be known about these topics. And then I mentioned before metabolo-epigenomics. So there's no metabolism without epigenetics. They're both used together to support trained immunity. Again, these mechanisms are poorly understood. I'll just highlight a couple of things on this slide. The metabolic reprogramming of monocytes and trained immunity has been studied, and beta-glucan from oats and barley has been found to trigger trained immunity in mature monocytes and macrophages. The phytochemicals, so phyto meaning plants, so these are bioactive compounds in plants, so quercetin, naringin, these have been shown to influence multiple metabolic pathways to have multiple metabolic effects on pro-inflammatory macrophages. So again, this training, it can either be enhanced or or attenuated, which is reduced. And this is also called immune tolerance. So, or immunoparalysis. So as we see in people who just, like in naturopathic medicine, we treat syndromes, never been well since. This is common, so post-viral fatigue syndrome. Now, when it comes to herbal medicines, they don't just work one way. They don't, like, they'll either, I mean, they regulate homeostatic mechanisms. So where the body needs something increased at that time, that's what they'll do. If the body needs something checked or suppressed, that's what they do. They're known as immunomodulating. So not which would be immunosuppressant and immunostimulating. So they modulate because it's called due to their multiple and pleiotropic effects, meaning they have more than one effect. And the good news is that you know, when the body's given the right things, the body will, if you're in, you know, relatively good health, your homeostatic mechanisms will kick in and you will heal. So you have pattern recognition receptor antagonists, phytochemicals. So they inhibit the pattern recognition receptors, which increases the recognition of, it activates innate immune responses and trains innate immunity. And then you have agonists, which stimulate trained immunity as well. So there's two there's antagonism and agonism when it comes to pattern recognition receptors. So these phytochemicals, and I'll talk more about them, and like curcumin, naringenin, piperine, bicolin, penafluorine, oxyberberine, these have all been shown to target the pattern recognition receptor toll-like 4, which is innate immune receptor, very important for trained immunity. It regulates trained immunity. So these phytochemicals, they modulate the toll-like receptor 4 and nuclear factor kappa B pathway, which is an inflammatory mediator, by regulating pro-inflammatory microRNA expression. So these are the things: histone modification, DNA methylation, and microRNA expression. This is epigenetic reprogramming of that herbal medicine is capable of doing outside a good diet and lifestyle. And then we have beneficial gut microbiota, which a lot of research, gut immune axis, gut brain axis is going into. And really, like many herbs will increase beneficial gut microbiota. They actually will feed the good bacteria, and they can keep things in check, but also act as a food source. So the gut microbiota, again, influences DNA methylation, and toll-like receptor involvement is also there. And most importantly, the beneficial gut microbiota act as a source of PAMPs to act as a source of the pathogen-associated molecular patterns, to actually train the PRRs, the pattern recognition receptors, to make that communication better. So another reason to have kefir and fermented milk products, to your diet. Kombucha. So, the solutions are to get healthy, be healthy. I mean, self-care. A lot of people need to learn about that. This is the basics, In naturopathic medicine, we always discuss convalescence. People need to rest. When they're sick, they need to lose the soldier-on attitude and have convalescent foods, convalescent soups. The solutions I'll talk about here are herbal medicines. So phytochemicals in herbal medicines and trained immunity. So this is, again, we're talking about how we can train the innate immune cells to remember. So again, these are the things I've discussed. So 36% of traditional Chinese medicine formulas have been found to interact with histone modifying enzymes. Phytochemicals, again, they modulate DNA methylation and they regulate microRNA expression. So I've listed some phytochemicals there. I'll talk about them. And then importantly, that beneficial gut microbiota acts as a source of PAMPs to train the pattern recognition receptors, to train innate immune cells, and herbal medicines increase beneficial gut microbiota. So turmeric. We'll talk about some things that people can certainly incorporate in their diets. So turmeric, it's available everywhere, obviously curries. You can put it in juice, beetroot, carrot, apple and ginger, and turmeric is a nice juice called a beetroot blast. But curcumin is a well-studied polyphenol from turmeric. So Chinese herb, I've got the Chinese names there as well. Huang in Chinese is yellow. So curcumin ameliorates the cytokine storm effects. So it improves them. It's a significant, curcumin has many actions, but it's a significant anti-inflammatory. So it'll decrease pro-inflammatory cytokines and increase the anti-inflammatory cytokines. It's been shown curcumin is a potent therapeutic against SARS-CoV-2 Omicron variant. So this is research. And it's been shown to disrupt the Omicron spike protein ACE complex, the ACE receptor complex. So that's on the human host cell. And then you've got the spike protein on the virus. and the ACE on the human host cells. So it disrupts that. And it also disrupts something else. And I've got another article coming up soon more on these proteases. So these main protease, also called 3CL-Pro, they play a crucial role in SARS-CoV-2 replication. So we can slow down the viral replication. And curcumin then targets, so all of these phytochemicals, you know, that it's all about DNA methylation, microRNA expression, and regulating the toll-like receptors. So curcumin's a good one, a teaspoon, always with black pepper and a little bit of water twice a day. Our nettle, favorite Irish herb. So here we have nettle soup actually in spring. So nettle's a blood tonic. And nettle is an incredibly powerful herb. When my children got when they got the virus initially, that's a bit of a story anyway, but I was a little bit freaked out with what I saw at the time. And I gave my son, well, quite simply, when I saw the virus for the first time, I lifted my son's shirt like this. He had cramps in his body. On his stomach, he had a macropapular diffuse rash like measles, yeah? On his arm, he had fluid-filled vesicles like chickenpox. On his head, he had allergic wheals like a nettle. When I saw it, I thought, oh, crikey, we're going to end up in hospital tonight, yeah? I gave him 2 doses of nettle and 1 acupuncture treatment. He went to sleep and it was gone the next day. Nettle is a powerful, it's nature's antihistamine. So it's exceptionally high in quercetin, another flavonoid. And quercetin is a powerful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. It's found in many plants. And I mean, it's found in nettle leaf, obviously. It's found in capers and red onion. They're the 2 highest dietary sources of it. So it's a more potent inhibitor, quercetin, of COVID-19 main protease and ACE2 than hydroxychloroquine. So they've done comparative studies. So there's a randomized controlled trial on clinicaltrials.gov now exploring the effectiveness of quercetin in treating SARS-CoV-2. So that's something that's in the process. And quercetin inhibits papain-like protease, which is another one, which also is involved in viral replication. And again, so all these phytochemicals regulate microRNA expression, activate toll-like receptors, and are involved in DNA methylation as well. So naringenin is in bitter orange. Naringenin is something that's, there's again a lot of research about this. Citrus aurantium is a good herb for weight loss actually in Chinese medicine. Bitter orange. So it's a flavonoid glycoside. It's found in bitter orange and also found in chamomile and linden flowers as well. So another reason to have a chamomile tea before bed. It's a candidate, naringenin, against SARS-CoV-2. No human trials have been undertaken as yet, but there has been progress made in the development of a controlled release formulation. Naringenin does everything: anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, antioxidant, anti-metabolic syndrome, so prevents genetic damage, central nervous system diseases. Now, what it does importantly with SARS-CoV-2, which is an RNA-dependent, is it acts like the antiviral drug remdesivir, and this remdesivir is an RNA-dependent RNA polymerase inhibitor. So it's involved in the replication of RNA viruses. So naringenin is a natural, well, it has the same pharmacological effects as remdesivir, which is interesting. Another reason, so naringenin also inhibits, so ACE2, which is on, I've talked about that a lot in my articles. It's one of the host cell receptors that allow SARS to get into our immune cells and infect them. So it does, as I say, everything. So, well, PL-Pro, M-Pro, and RD-RP, that's naringenin. The next phytochemical, bicolin. So from Baikal skullcap, scoot bike, we call this. or Huang Qin in Chinese. Huang again is yellow. This is one of the 3 yellows. We have Huang Qin, Huang Lian, and Huang Bai. I'm talking about 2 of the yellows here. So herbs do more than what I'm just talking about. I mean, this one clears damp from the upper jowl. This one helps you sleep better. Yeah, it keeps your mind clear. It's a flavonoid then. So we have Scoot Bike, or we have Scutellaria lateriflora. And so again, it's a potential therapeutic against SARS-CoV-2. And Vicalin has been shown to inhibit, so these proteases, PL-Pro and M-Pro, which is also called 3CL-Pro. And then it's highly, highly anti-inflammatory as well. So in the cytokine storm, Vicalin targets, these are inflammatory mediators, so the interleukins and tumor necrosis factor alpha. MAPK is another one that's involved in inflammation and also regulating innate immunity. Clinicaltrials.gov again has a randomized controlled trial, multi-center and phase 2A clinical trial to evaluate Vicalin tablets, safety and efficiency for adults with influenza. So they're already exploring the use in influenza. So that's a great phytochemical there and a great herb. So the next one I'll discuss is peoniflorin, which is from white peony. Peony is beautiful, look at that. So you have white peony and you have red peony in Chinese medicine. And there is a formula that they're using in China now. Shui Bi Jing is an important therapy in TCM. It's been approved to treat COVID-19 in China. And so XBJ was effective, well, Shui Beijing is effective in managing moderate and severe COVID-19. So they're already using this. So this formula, it has red peony in it and other herbs there. Honghua and Chishao, Xuanxiong and Dangshun and Danggui, which is Angelica as well. So again, so this formula has been shown to have a good affinity with SARS-CoV-2 protease, main protease, and ACE2. And so that's another good phytochemical that's useful to train your innate immune cells to remember. Oxyberberine, I'll talk about this next. So from Huang Lian, this is clearing damp heat from the middle jowl. Here, and berberines kill everything bad and nothing good. Really, I use them. I mean, they're very, very yellow, very, very strong. So it's an isoquinoline alkaloid and metabolite of the alkaloid berberine. So berberine is from Berberis vulgaris and this Coptis root, Coptis chinensis. The WHO website states that berberine reduces circulating inflammatory medias in patients with severe COVID-19. So that's interesting. And berberine inhibits SARS-CoV-2 replication. And it's been shown to be particularly effective against the Delta and the Delta plus variants, but we're going to have variants A to Z soon. Now, resveratrol is the next phytochemical I'd like to talk about. So this is great. I use Japanese knotweed as my source of these. So the herbs that I'm talking about here are the ones that I prescribe as sources of these phytochemicals, because I'm a herbalist and I like to prescribe herbal medicine in their whole form. So this is such a hated herb, Japanese knotweed. Can't get a mortgage if it's in your garden. Nothing kills it. So this herb is actually for longevity. And I use a lot of it, actually. It's got great antimicrobial quality. So resveratrol, it's in Japanese knotweed, it's in red wine. It's a highly powerful antioxidant, anti-aging, so it's in grapes, blueberries, raspberries, mulberries. And there's a randomized controlled trial for resveratrol for outpatient treatment of mild COVID-19 published in scientific reports, which found that resveratrol recipients had a lower incidence of hospitalization, COVID-19 related accident and emergency visits, and pneumonia. So this is being used currently, and another one that's, well, easy to get into your diet, certainly. So again, all of these phytochemicals train the innate immune cells to remember. Epigallocatechin gallate in green tea. So everybody knows about this phytochemical. It's huge. So there is it's the major polyphenol of green tea. There is a phase 2 study looking at the effectiveness of prevafenon, which is just EGCG, as chemo prophylaxis, so meaning preventative, to prevent COVID-19 in healthcare workers. And that's published on clinicaltrials.gov as well. So I tried to pull out the trials on natural medicine on clinicaltrials.gov, or just looking at what the World Health Organization is saying about them. And so drink that. I'll just say with green tea, it's got a lot of tannins in it, so sometimes it can make you feel a bit queasy. So just have it maybe after meals, if that happens to you. Piperine in black pepper is another useful phytochemical to train your innate immune system. So it's pepper. It increases the bioavailability of all drugs by 30 to 200%. So that's why you have it in your turmeric, because it increases the bioavailability. And this combination of turmeric and pepper is a potential option for the management of COVID-19 based on several mechanisms: anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antifibrotic, to stop clotting and modulate the immune system. So that's another good one to have there that you can just add to the diet. Licorice is another one of these herbal synergizers, increases the bioavailability of things it's added to. So in Chinese medicine, ginger and licorice would be the two big ones, and it tastes good. Glycyrrhizin, it's a saponin found in licorice. So there's glycyrrhizin and glycyrretinic acid, and these are the two phytochemicals in licorice, and they may directly interact with key players in viral replication, such as, well, internalization to bring it in, and replication, such as ACE2, the spike protein. This is host transmembrane serine protease 2, which is another host cell receptor that's involved, like ACE, in allowing the entry of it into our cells. And again, these proteases as well. So there's a lot of actions there that make licorice roots you can buy, and licorice tea you can drink. This is my tonic. This is my trained immunity tonic. So the FDA once accused me of being a snake oil peddler and selling COVID cures. So this is, as I said, I'm a herbalist, and I like to prescribe herbal medicine in their whole form. Obviously, for me, a phytochemical, I mean, these herbs will work synergistically together better anyway. So that's a tonic that I've put together to train innate immune cells and to abrogate SARS-CoV-2 infection.
Thank you very much. That was very informative presentation. So as a part 2 of our discussions, there will be some questions. I hope you could help us answer them. So you mentioned herd immunity. Do you think that with Omicron, this term may be not longer valid? We see people reinfect more regularly. So most probably the innate immunity has been compromised in a way with previous infections. So I would like you to give us, some clues whether we will get herd immunity with new variants coming so regularly and people reinfecting so often.
I think the thing is that children are the key here. If we could stop the mass vaccination rollout in children, then certainly we can achieve herd immunity. So herd immunity is possible, as Gert van den Bosch says, with a sterilizing vaccine. So it's just because these don't actually neutralize the virus. There lies the problem. And I guess with the new variants, And because the coronavirus is so clever and it keeps evolving, then we have to keep up. So we're going to be met with many immune challenges. Certainly, I believe that herd immunity is possible because someone like myself has had it, you know,
So do you
and then I
think,
had it again, actually.
yeah, so do you think the terminology of trained immunity as such really applies to COVID infection? Because we know this is not normal virus.
Yeah, the thing about trained immunity is you have to expose yourself to the virus, whether it's a novel virus or not a normal virus, or is that trained immunity only happens when you expose yourself to the disease. So the things that I've discussed, the herbal medicines just optimize our immune system to make that process more effective when we are re-exposed. So trained immunity only happens from exposure. So you have to expose yourself. And this is the thing, people have certainly been protecting themselves and shielding themselves after you train your immunity, after you address your immune dysfunction.